Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Satellite Gaming Satellcast. This is episode 4 of Season 2, and I've got a very interesting episode. Definitely something we haven't done before. Here with me, I have Eric.
Hello.
And I have David.
How's it going?
And these fine gentlemen are from Rapture Gaming Studios. They have taken an amazing amount of time out of their day to join me in talking to you about anything Rapture, a little bit Ouya, and then gaming in general. So here we go. Guys, you're from Rapture Gaming Studios. Why don't you tell us a little bit about maybe the genesis of how Rapture came about?
Okay. Well, basically, the president of the company, Zach, came to me when he was still in school and wanted me to help him write a project game for a school project, and I kind of helped him along with that. And I can't really get into specifics because it's actually going to be a game eventually. But that's kind of the genesis of where it came about, is he came to me to help him write a story for a game, and gathered a few dudes up and started trying to make video games.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really cool because, that's how a lot of things are started. Just, two dudes, just a few dudes being like, man, can you help me with this? And then it turns into a gaming studio. It's not quite that easy.
No, hell no, it's not.
As a whole, the company, it's really just a bunch of, we're all friends to an extent with somebody else, so it's kind of one of those, start BSing about how, we're working on this game, and, somebody's like, oh, well, I'm really good at this, and we're like, well, why don't you come help us out? And that's just how it's kind of grown from.
Kind of like that snowball effect, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we're very, very loose with the whole, mentality around here, because today we're actually working today, and we literally just talked about stupid crap for maybe 30 minutes.
Right. I mean, so you would say that the, atmosphere would is it more, from what we've heard, obviously, I don't personally work at Valve, but from what we've heard, they're pretty laid back over there. You guys kind of like the Valve structure, or is there a lot more structure and, deadlines and whatnot that you've got to hit? Well, how exactly is that?
There's structure and there's deadlines, and we have set goals and things like that, but really our meetings on Sunday are more to make sure that everybody's on the same page as far as what they're supposed to be doing and stuff like that. And it's kind of like a LAN party, really. It's a bunch of dudes get together, we talk about our games, what we're going to do, what needs to be done for the week, and then we kind of hang out.
Yeah, oh no, it's amazing how easily a lot of that kind of stems. When you just clear the air, everything's a lot easier. Well, I guess we'll move on from the genesis there. And why don't you guys tell me about Gun Blitz? We've been hearing about it. Several of my friends have said something about it. I hear it from you guys yourselves. Tell us what Gun Blitz is about.
Okay. Gun Blitz is a side-scroller shoot-'em-up, like retro kind of feel game. You're basically playing a ship, really, and there's characters. They're not in the game as of right now. But you're a ship, and you're trying to save this alien race from its own destruction, because there's another alien race that's trying to destroy them, and you're helping them fight the evil aliens, basically. And it's like, I guess like Galaga or something.
Yeah, it's like Galaga meets Space Invaders, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Well, it's a little more fast-paced, obviously, and better graphics.
It's a little more fast-paced. It's a little more interactive than, Space Invaders was.
Yeah. Initially, it had a comic book that I wrote, and one of our 2D artists, Debbie, drew up. I drew the initial concepts, and she kind of inked everything together and put everything together and made it look nice. And there was a comic book that was going to be in the actual game, but it is not in it as of right now, because the head programmer who made the game didn't really like it the way it turned out. So we're going to rehash it and try and meld it into, hopefully we're going to be able to put something in there on the Ouya release.
Right.
I'm not making any promises.
So definitely, if anyone didn't know, this game is for the Ouya. I apologize. Probably should have said something about that.
Well, it's on PC too.
Yeah, and PC. Here's a question I have for you. When it comes to developing in general, why did you guys decide to go with side-scrolling? Was it specifically Gun Blitz that you're like, you know what, I can't see this as anything other than a side-scroller? Or is that something that you really didn't know until you experimented with multiple things? Any ideas there?
Well, one of our programmers initially kind of came up with the idea of Gun Blitz, and he gave me like a whole 3-page document about the story and the background and all that stuff, and I kind of ran with it for story-wise. But what he wanted to do is he really, really, really wanted this thing to be a retro gamer to the point to where you had to enter codes to get to different levels. Like if you beat a level, it'd give you a code, and it's like that currently on the PC.
That's interesting.
We're maybe changing that for Ouya and all that jazz, but it was really meant to be a retro style game, and we couldn't really see it being not a side scroller and still maintain that retro feel.
Well, so okay, keeping on that retro feel and the whole side scrolling concept, is this something that maybe hypothetically, hopefully, becomes an extremely successful game? Is this something that you would consider maybe remaking for maybe a 3D or anything more modern? Is that an idea?
About potentially doing things like that. And even as far as Ouya release, we talked about it, but it's not feasible at this point in time. Maybe down the road, yeah.
Right. Yeah, maybe the resources are a little more plentiful.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that there was going to be a comic with that, and I find that really interesting. A lot of your games now, actually a lot of them, are doing away with... There's a big argument. I've read, I'm not saying it's a valid argument, but I've read somewhere that a lot of people do not like the whole idea of cutscenes in games in general, and this kind of reminded me. Now, I don't know how to word this right, but what do you think about that? Is cutscenes something that you see, especially in a retro game, that you think you would need at all? Or even the comic? Or is the comic something that you would almost see like you could buy separately, like as a separate like physical copy?
Initially, we talked about doing a separate physical copy, but what our initial intention with the comic was just an intro. So it'd be like an intro of like maybe 9 pages of comic, just give you the layout of the story, and then go through the game, and then maybe do stuff between levels. But we didn't get that far with the comic. And as far as like cutscenes go, personally, in my opinion, I think that cutscenes detract from the player's experience.
With cutscenes, if I can cut in. With cutscenes, not many people, especially myself, I don't ever watch a cutscene. If I can skip through it, I skip through it. With the style of game that Gun Blitz is, I've played through it. I've played a couple levels of it, and there's that little bit of loading period in between levels where, you can throw in one of these comics and have that show up. And it gives you something to look at instead of just a loading screen.
Right. Okay.
Because, like, especially with, a lot of the first-person shooters and the games that are out now, when you get your load screen, like when you're loading your map or you're loading your level, all it shows is that little loading bar in the bottom of it with a picture, and it just flashes random text at the bottom. I don't care about that.
Yeah.
I'd rather look at something that's relevant to the game, but doesn't take away from the gameplay experience itself.
Zach, actually, president of Gun Blitz, would like to actually chime in on this. He just walked in.
All right,
Cutscenes in games, it depends on the game, depends on the style. I see like, it really does depend on the style because like, Uncharted, for instance, is a very, cutscene like oriented type of game. Yeah. I don't know. It's like
Nathan Drake's story, not mine. Yeah. So it makes sense to have the cutscenes.
You're talking like Heavy Rain though now.
Yeah.
Because Heavy Rain, that dabbed on the, hey, I'm playing the actual experience of what it is. It's like a movie. Whereas like Uncharted, it told the story through the cutscenes, even though you still had that gameplay experience. It didn't, you didn't have like that cause and effect negative reaction in a cutscene. Right. You didn't have that ability to do that.
Yeah.
Where in Heavy Rain, even though there was like a cutscene, you still had that ability to choose your actions. And
The Walking Dead-esque. Obviously, the Heavy Rain was
The Walking Dead even had like cutscenes that were uninteractive though, and I think that takes away from the player, in my opinion. And I would like to, if in future games that we do, I would like to do away with them entirely.
That's interesting. Well, it's very interesting because it's a very touchy point. A lot of people, I think it's split. Personally, it depends on the game. There are some games where cutscenes have no business being there.
Yeah.
And then in a game like Uncharted, I believe that I need the cutscenes. It's Nathan Drake's story. That's just how the cutscenes are told. they're telling the story. It just makes sense. But for the walk,
could you imagine it? Could you imagine playing any of the Uncharted's and not having a cutscene in there? There would be no story. There would be no gameplay whatsoever.
Here's my opinion though. It's video games are a new means to tell a story,
right?
And treating them like an old means to tell a story takes away from their value.
If I want to watch a movie, I'll turn on Netflix.
Exactly. If you can take the video game media and make it its own thing, to where the player plays through the entirety of the game, including cutscenes or scenes that incorporate story wholeheartedly, like Heavy Rain, and even Uncharted did it a little bit, where there were big giant cutscenes, like the train falling off the ledge. It's kind of a cutscene, but you play through it still.
Right.
And if you can take the player and have him involved in these cutscenes, as opposed to cutting him out entirely and causing a separation between the player and the game, I think it can fulfill that gap as opposed to trying to make a video game like a movie.
Absolutely. I mean, I can completely see where you're coming from. It's hard to imagine some games with cutscenes. One that comes to mind is Half-Life. Although Half-Life had cutscenes, you were always in control of the camera. You were pretty much always in control of Gordon at at all times. It's just hard to imagine a cutscene, from showing Gordon messing around with stuff, and it's like, wait a minute, I'm him,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Took a different approach to it though too.
What's that?
Half-Life took a different approach to it though too, because you'd be walking around and then you have characters following you, telling the story.
Yeah.
Essentially.
That's something that some games will, are great with, and others have no business trying because it just doesn't work.
That's kind of like Mass Effect did that too, didn't it?
Mass Effect had cutscenes though too.
Yeah, it had a lot of cutscenes.
Have background conversations going on.
Right.
Really more so.
That actually, I think that puts more of a flavor to the game because it doesn't seem like you're just you can concentrate, like you can eavesdrop on the conversation behind you, see what they're talking about, which is probably pointless, or it has something to do with the game.
It can be stupid, but it's fun.
It
adds an element to it.
Right, exactly. As a player, I would enjoy that because it makes the game feel more realistic, environment aspect than just having a regular conversation like you and I, and there's no conversation at all going around us.
Yeah.
That would be, I think it would just drive me nuts.
Depth to the story.
Right, exactly.
Right, okay, so when it comes to future games, like, okay, I know where Zach pretty much Zach, you're kind of in the middle, right? You think it really depends, is what you're saying, right?
I say it depends on the game, the unique style, how they implement the story into the game. It's fully just off of structure and design. If you have a game like Gun Blitz per se, you can't even do cutscenes in that game. I mean, you could, but it's pointless.
Yeah, well,
because it is more retro feel.
In Gun Blitz, it would just be like you throw a comic up in the between levels.
Like Angry Birds.
That would be considered a cutscene.
Angry Birds did that. And, I mean, Angry Birds successful. He did it well because you really didn't get the idea of what the design or how they designed that game or what the purpose of that game was.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got birds and I have pigs.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, why am I killing these pigs?
Yeah.
With these birds that are angry.
Yeah.
With a slingshot.
Yeah.
Now I have a story, and
Right.
they stole my damn eggs, and now I'm gonna murder these pigs and eat them with bacon. I don't know, and eggs and
Right.
whatever.
Some games just aren't made for them, and it's great that you kind of walked in on this. We had kind of dabbed on maybe if hypothetically sometime you can remake Gun Blitz into a modern shooter, or a modern, anything more modern, maybe not shooter-esque, but anything more modern is.
So you're talking like
3D
Star
graphics.
Fox?
Well, I would say.
shooter?
So I mean, anything more. Just Star Fox. It all really depends. Is that something where a cutscene would maybe be more thought about since it's not retro anymore? It's in the here and now, and a lot of games obviously now have cutscenes. I would say the majority of your games have cutscenes, probably 75% of them, if not more. I might be wrong, but is that something you guys would be like, okay, cutscenes is something we need, or is that something that you're just you're going to look at it and be like, you know what? It depends. It really depends.
For Gun Blitz, I think it's a little superfluous to throw cutscenes in there.
Well, if we design Gun Blitz for a 3D style game, I would say what we would do would be like, take Gun Blitz's original story, go off on a new branch or a new story with it, and make it fully 3D and have cutscenes like, how does Star Fox do it, where they have like the bosses or whatever, and then
all of his Star Fox cutscenes really was just like Fox running to the damn ship.
Right, running to the ship, all four of them just jumping in their ships, and you would hear, what was the frog? Slippy, with his annoying voice, it sounded like a female, which drove me nuts. But, the other cutscenes were like, oh, big boss pops up, and the ships would do these maneuvers, and then it would go right back to the back of the ship.
Yeah, it wasn't really. There were really intensive cutscenes.
Right. So. And I couldn't see cutscenes being implemented into Gun Blitz whatsoever, even if it was a 3D game. Yeah. There's just no way.
The story's not in depth enough to justify.
Actually, there is a very in depth story. We just didn't put it in there.
Well, that's a great thing, is you have this, when it comes to Gun Blitz, you have this universe. And Gun Blitz, the game itself, is only actually a small part of that universe, right? It can ever evolve. It can always evolve. Basically, you're starting with this little Bible, and you're just telling me a chapter of it.
Yeah.
Right. That's the great thing about, I think that's one thing that I picked up on from listening about Gun Blitz itself, is it can evolve. And there could be, maybe a 3D game, or there could be another side-scroller that's just specifically all story-based. It's hard to say, but it sounds like it can ever evolve, and that's very important for a game.
We've definitely dabbed on the evolution of Gun Blitz and what we can do with it, and I mean, it's just endless. It seriously is. Keith is, I mean, he's the one that created the game, Keith, and he's just gone through and literally like started this whole transition of what we could do next.
Yeah. That's great. All right. So now the question, and I'm not sure you guys can answer this. Isn't something I went over with. I didn't really think about it. But something's asking me, is Gun Blitz something that you develop and you think, okay, this is going to be a franchise? Or is this basically like, you know what, Gun Blitz is its only one, we're not worried about a franchise, we're not worried about anything?
We weren't really worried about a franchise per se, but we did develop it with the ability to add on to it. In the future, if we wanted to.
I think, I agree with you on that, but I think Keith's intentions were just developing the game and putting something out in the market, getting us known, and then when we got the game, like, before polished version, right after beta, he's like, oh, we could do this.
Yeah.
And just create this massive universe with the game. We're just like, oh, Lord. Okay. I mean, because we developed it. Did you guys go over the development of what we used engine-wise or anything?
No, not yet.
We use Game Maker, and it's god-awful for porting to other devices.
It's a nightmare to port.
And, it's a nightmare. And so now we have to figure out if we're going to actually use Game Maker in future games, or if we're just going to go and use other engines.
I vote no.
And I think 9 out of 10 people are voting no, if not more, on the studio, at least. So, the universe is just so large now. I mean, we could go anywhere and make it a franchise.
No, I don't. That's the question. Do you want? Well, now from your guys' standpoint, we all know how developing a franchise. I mean, I write in my free time, and when I write something, it doesn't necessarily I never need a sequel. Is it something that you guys are like, you know what? I don't even want to do a sequel to this. Let's do something else. For example, Bungie and Halo. Obviously, that's why one reason they gave away Halo, not all of the reasons, but they honestly had been nothing but developing for a single franchise, and then decided to stop. So, would that kind of bother you guys to be like, all right, we're going to look at this as a franchise, but the problem with that is now I have to develop a bunch of Gun Blitz games. And maybe I don't know if that's a problem, but
from a marketing standpoint, I look at it as franchising can go one of two ways. Franchising, if it's done right, can either work out to your advantage, or you can essentially shoot yourself in the foot and drive your own game into the ground. If you look at Call of Duty, the way they do it, they've got a new game that comes out every year, and more people are beginning to grow tired of that game. Because to be honest with you, each one is it's the same game with a few different weapons, and the story is the exact same with, It just takes place in different areas.
It's the Madden of shooters.
If you look at it from the other standpoint to where it can work out in your advantage, you can take something like, I guess you could probably look at, Oblivion and Skyrim as, Elder Scrolls as a franchise. They wait a certain amount of time before they put out another one. So if we were gonna, think about franchising out Gun Blitz, it might be one of those where, we put out one now, and then a few years down the road, somebody gets a wild hair up their butt and decides, hey, let's go ahead and do another Gun Blitz. By then, you've got the people who were there with us when the first game came out, and they're like, oh, hey, they just decided to put out another Gun Blitz. This is going to be really cool.
Yeah.
As long as we don't stack them up one right after another, it works out in your advantage.
Well, it's like writing a book. You see authors, they write numerous sequels to their books, and they tend to fade out over time because people get sick and tired of the same shit, different day type stuff. Like Tom Clancy, for instance. He writes military, and then it's like, oh, nobody wants to buy my book anymore because it's the same stuff
over and over again.
And then you got guys that write
one
books.
trick pony, basically.
Right, and you have guys that write books, like Sean, for instance. His are all unique and different, and they have a different, twist to everything.
You got to keep it mixed up, or you're gonna bore your audience.
Well, you get to the point to where you get into diminishing returns. Anyway, you can only do so much until people start not giving a shit.
Well. Here's how I want you guys to look at it, though. Here's what I'm curious about. Like, I think we all know as consumers, buying the same shit is just not. You're not going to do it. You know better.
Yeah.
But as a developer, you guys have an interesting standpoint to where you can. I mean, wouldn't it get boring developing for the same franchise the entire time, or is that something that you guys are?
Fine. That's the unique thing about us is because we're indie. We don't have a publisher breathing down our neck, saying, hey, you have to do this game every year from here on out.
So if we don't want to do another Gun Blitz, we don't have to.
Right. We go against something else and be like, hey, we got this awesome idea. Let's just roll with it,
Well, here's where I want to think about that. I don't mean to cut you out, but I think we're going to kind of get to the same point here. The reason is the cash flow. A lot of games get franchised for cash flow. Bottom line.
As long as it's done right.
It doesn't. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's done right. I mean, we're not going to say Call of Duty's done right, but guess what? #1 selling game of all time. Like, ignoring Mario, modern generation. It's just
reason why it's #1 selling game is because you have those 13-year-old kids that were hooked on it initially from Call of Duty. Let's say 4, for instance, because that's when it initially really started. When I was 16 when that game came out, I bought that one. I think that was 4.
Oh, no, we were 20 when 4 came out.
Yeah, I was 17 when that game came
17?
out.
17? Yeah, so we were 18.
18. Okay, so when that game came out, regardless of age, it doesn't matter, we all got hooked on it. Those 13-year-old kids got hooked on it. And from there on out, all these other people that got hooked on it, they stayed on the bandwagon. In a sense, it's like rooting for your own football team or baseball, whatever sports teams, and you're going to stay with that team regardless of how terrible the game is, just because of the fact that you enjoy playing that multiplayer or enjoy the stories that they tell. It doesn't matter how bad it could be.
Well, okay, here's where I differ on that point. Is I think that Call of Duty's multiplayer is fucking awful, and it was fun.
All right, I'll let you go.
It was fun, and I loved playing it when it came out, and it got to the point to where I just wanted to stab people when I played that game.
They fixed it, though, in Black Ops 2.
No, Black Ops 1 was great. I haven't played Black Ops 2 because I refused to play another Call of Duty game because of that exact reason.
Right.
And I've played games that I love that are multiplayer. Mass Effect 3, awesome multiplayer. Love it.
Yeah.
And you know my stand on Mass Effect. I'm not a Mass Effect fan, but
it's a different type of multiplayer, and I think that's why it failed. Is because people are used to Call of Duty multiplayer,
exactly,
and they're not used to working with a team and using tactics.
And I'm not even
have to in Call of Duty.
I'm not even a COD buff. I don't even know why we're talking about COD.
It just came up as franchising.
Sequels,
right. I'm a Medal of Honor guy or a Battlefield guy.
You used to be a Call of Duty.
I used to be a Call of Duty guy, but that was when Call of Duty 4 came out.
Yeah.
I hated Modern Warfare 2. I hated Modern Warfare 3.
Well, you guys are no
What's that?
You guys are no fun. Modern Warfare 2 was the Halo 2 of this generation, sir. It was.
Halo 2,
I mean,
Halo 2 was the Halo 2 of my generation.
Right.
well, Halo 2 was last gen, though. That's what I meant.
I know you guys touched on Bungie. I know why they sold out. I don't know why, but I have a feeling why they sold out of the franchise.
Because they didn't want to do Halo 15?
They didn't want to do that, but I think they were just kind of sick and tired of working with Microsoft on that game.
Can't say I blame them.
And then they turned around and sold off to 343 Studios, which was initially 30 guys from Bungie that went there and they started up
Bungie anyway.
And they started something new and they put the life back into Master Chief in 4, and I think they have a really good sense of where they're going with
I will
now.
say I loved Halo 4, and I never was a humongous fan of the Halo trilogy. I liked it. I liked the way it went. I liked the story a lot. But Halo 4 really revived that.
Yeah,
franchise.
I love Halo 4 multiplayer.
Halo 4 in general was a great game. I think we can all agree.
Halo 4 is the Halo 2 of this generation.
Oh, no, not even.
That's what it is.
So here, real quick, this is where I'll wrap this up. The only thing I wanted to say on this topic is I bought pretty much every Call of Duty that's come out. And the main reason is the lack thereof of people online to certain games. But I think the way my friends or the people I play with online, I think whatever they're buying as a whole is something I'll adapt to. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that's a big part of why I buy what I buy sometimes.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
How many guys are on Medal of Honor when we get on? There's not very many.
Yeah, we gotta fight you into a serpent.
If there's only 2 of you on,
Medal of Honor is amazing.
Medal of Honor's terrible.
Anyway,
all right. To wrap that up.
I agree with that, though. I usually tend to buy games that my friends are buying, so I can play online with them.
Okay, so pretty much sticking with Rapture, what are some genres that you all would like to develop for? RPGs, FPSs, and what is something that you like? Some genres you may be working on. Anything that you can talk about, anything out there. Whenever you're ready, just throw them out there. I'm very curious.
Currently, we are working on an RPG.
Oh, see, you've got my heart, sir. You have my heart.
We're currently that's way out though. That's not for a while. We're working on a PvP game right now. Okay. That's actually in development.
We're actually developing right now as we speak. Yeah. I should be actually downstairs working. But
from a writing standpoint, the writers are working on an RPG. The developers are working on a PvP game,
Okay.
Anything in particular? No.
I would just say it's player versus player, and it's balls to the wall. Awesome. I can tell you that right now.
That's good stuff.
It's gonna be fun.
It's I guess we could say it. I mean, we could be like Twisted Metal on steroids.
It's vehicular combat. How about that? There we go.
There we go. Yeah, that's some good stuff. All right.
It's like trying to rekindle that flame that was there, in the
PS1
the
era.
PS1 where it was really big. And it all kind of died out when first-person shooters started to come in and be a big thing.
Barring any sort of humongous failure on our end, that would be our next game.
We have
continue. Yeah.
Personally, I have a great love for survival horror games, and we are currently trying to do one of those.
Yeah, we're talking about one of those too.
We have one of those in the works, and I want to do that game.
We're 12 years out?
Oh god, yeah, we got I've got 2 more stories for new games that I want to show you.
Yeah, so I mean, we have like 14 years out of development.
We have an endless supply of ideas, but currently only 2 that we're actively working on.
But like you said, like franchises, we're not even going to try to hit on those. We're going to try and hit every single genre. Not every single one, but we're not going to create some Mario.
As a company, it's kind of, we're like that ADD kid that,
gets
on track, gets dead set on one thing, and then we see that shiny thing out of the corner of our eye, and we're like, oh, hey, well, let's hit on this too.
Yeah.
No, that's terrible.
I would like to personally, as far as franchises go, I would like to not develop a franchise simply because it's profitable.
Okay, right. That's actually very interesting you bring that up. That's a really good topic. While I'm thinking of it, now, as your company grows, and I give you my heart and soul, I hope it does, as it continues to grow, is developing multiple games, doing multiple teams something that you'd like to do, or do you want to always develop?
We're doing that now.
Yeah.
Okay, so that answers that question. It's like, do you always want to, have all your resources on one, put all your eggs in one basket per se?
Right. We have a writing team that does pre-development. We have a modeling team that models on another game. But then we have like multiple games that we're working on at the same time. So our modeler, and we have like a mobile team. It's not like we don't have like a mobile team. We have a mobile team. We have, our modelers divide up into other teams and work on one game and another game at the same time and then they'll flop back and forth between games.
Yeah.
Because each game has a list of objectives or a list of goals of what needs to be accomplished, and that's how we lay it out.
Right.
Really to divide up our workflow.
Yeah.
To be more specific, we have a team who's working on active development of a title. We have a team who is working on development of titles that will be coming out after said title that's currently being worked on, and then we have a mobile team.
Right.
Okay. All right. Excellent. All right. So with wrapping that up, final question for Rapture. This will probably it'll be the final question for the Rapture, and then we're going to delve into the Ouya real quick. Future vision for the company. What is your ultimate? You can give me your realistic expectations, your unrealistic expectations, any of it. Just what is the future vision for Rapture Gaming Studios?
Okay, can I go? I want to go first. Then we can go David or Zach or whoever. But I want to go first. For me, I want to be able to do this to where I don't have to worry about money anymore. I mean, and I know that everybody says, "Oh, it's not about money," but it is. I mean,
hey.
I want to do something that I love and get paid to do it.
Absolutely.
And I want to develop games that are
and not just on a minimum wage.
Yeah,
budget.
exactly. I want to develop big ass blockbuster games. I'm going to be honest. I want to develop a game that's going to take over the world.
For me, it's kind of, I remember what it was like when I first got my first gaming console, which was the Sega Genesis for Christmas when I don't even know how old I was. And I remember what it was like first playing that game, and then just over the years how it's just gotten mundane. I want to be able to bring back that, that feeling of getting your first console and playing that first game. And I would, for, people who've been playing for years, just bring back what it used to be.
See,
that's
my vision of the company, as of right now, you probably know we're all freelance artists. We all work full-time jobs, part-time jobs, or 2 jobs, and then do this on the side. My vision for the company is to have everybody quit their jobs, work here, in the meantime, being able to have a nice salary, living at home, with your own house, bills are paid, no one's in debt, and being successful. That's what it's
our
about.
real vision, to be honest. And as far as to concisely put the entirety of our studio under one banner, it's changing the gaming experience. We want to just flip the industry on its head, really.
And see, that's great to hear. I wish you guys the best of luck, honestly. I think those are all honest, realistic expectations. I don't really think any of that's realistic at all. I mean, everyone starts somewhere.
It's not, sorry to cut you off. It's not like we all want a multi-million-dollar mansion, a 62-foot yacht. We live
that money. Remember what
we live in the Virgin Islands. On this beach house. That's not. I mean, we've joked about that stuff. Having a Lamborghini or whatever.
The next pricing out company jets.
Yeah, I mean, we've joked about it, but it's something that, you know what? If we all live in our own house or whatever, we have a studio built, because obviously we don't have a studio. We work out of an apartment. We call it the studio, which is kind of funny.
Right.
And it's one of those things that's just like, we want to have this building that we're able to go there from an 8 to 5 job and just do what we are passionate about and become successful in the industry. Not as just as an indie developer, but as a major developer.
Yeah.
Because we've been considered on some articles that we are a major developer, not just for Ouya, but, in a sense for PC. They want to see us on Xbox. They want to see us on PlayStation. It's just a matter of how we're going to go about getting on those other consoles to make us become that major developer.
Yeah.
And I see us becoming that major developer as long as we keep pushing forward and striving for those goals.
A house and a car and a badass gaming rig. That's all we want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
House car debt's paid off. You know, I mean, not like we don't have vehicles, but newer vehicles. I know some of us drive like 1990s vehicles that were hand-me-downs from brothers or whatever. Some of us drive newer cars. It's just all a matter of, you know, other people living
comfortably.
Yeah, living comfortably is where we want it. That pop's about to fall down.
Oh, get it. Okay.
So I just wanted to warn him, man. But yeah, I mean that's kind of the main goal is living comfortably, I think.
No, you're absolutely right. Living comfortably is obviously a big goal, especially when you're starting from nothing. But we're out of time for this cast. We're definitely going to go ahead and go for the next cast. The next time I have you guys on, we'll be talking about the Ouya, why you guys decided to develop for the Ouya, and a little bit of that. Hopefully we'll talk about some gaming in general, but again, thank you to Rapture Gaming Studios for lending me David and Eric, and obviously Zach, going ahead to at least give us a little bit of talk on how everything is going back there, and I wish them the best of luck, and we'll see you guys next time here at Satellite Gaming.